If you had a blueprint that showed you exactly how to do in 60 days what most people can't achieve in a full year, then would you do it? If you could disappear for a couple of months, level up beyond anyone's wildest expectations, and then come back as a newer, better version of yourself, would you take that opportunity? I want you to listen closely because in this video, I'm going to give you my formula for doing exactly that. There comes a point in life when you look around and you realize that your current situation is no longer serving you well. Maybe you've played by the rules all your life. You've done everything that you're supposed to do and you're living the quote unquote American dream. But now you realize that what society told you to go after is not actually what brings you fulfillment or purpose. Or even worse, playing by the rules, following the status quo, it's left you aimless, depressed, unhealthy. If you feel anything like this, then you're definitely not alone. So many people live within unhappy circumstances and yet will not take the initiative to change their situation because they're conditioned to a life of security, conformity, and conservation. 88% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy, meaning they're on track towards premature onset of preventable chronic diseases. Some estimates suggest that 75% of Americans lack a clear sense of purpose or direction. And men who work in corporate jobs suffer from the highest rates of erectile dysfunction than any other occupational category. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds more like a nightmare than a dream. But since you're watching this video, I don't think I need to make a convincing argument that the standard life model just doesn't cut it for a lot of people. You've realized this, and now you've decided that this isn't the life that you want for yourself anymore. You know that you can be way healthier mentally and physically. You know that you can create a life that doesn't entail 30 to 40 years of working a 9 to 5 just to make other people's dreams come true. You know that you can take the exit ramp from the status quo and create what I call a designer lifestyle. The good news is that you absolutely can create whatever reality you want for yourself, and you can do it much faster than everybody thinks is possible if you approach it with an extreme level of intention. Now, I know this because I've had a few big life transformations where I leveled up and I basically became unrecognizable to the people who knew me in my past. Most people that I've met in the last 10 years or so, they have a hard time believing that I was once a super unhealthy person. I was the center of a million jokes about being skinny, being timid, being unhealthy. And it became such a core part of my identity that nobody, not even I, could see myself as anything otherwise. But today's a very different story. I went from being laughed at for being skinny and weak to being able to do push-ups in a handstand, building a business around my fitness. And more recently, I went from living in Chicago, working my corporate 9 to 5 job, to living in Europe, working as a solo entrepreneur, and spending way more of my time doing projects that I'm way more passionate about and living life on my own terms. Now, recently, I took a look back at what I did wrong and what I did right, and I found all of the commonalities through my experiences, as well as all of the elements that really drove the rapid change for me. And then I reverse engineered the process. Now, I'll admit that I didn't do this out of the goodness of my heart. I did this because I wanted to have a framework for myself in the future so that I can save myself a bunch of time. Because anytime that I have my sights set on a new life goal, my time window for changing my life or having that massive rapid transformation is about 60 days. Now, you might ask, what's so special about 60 days? Well, it's about the amount of time that it takes for new habits to be formed, and habits are the leading indicators of life. So if you show me a man's habits, then I can tell you where he's going. So to change one's life, one must change his habits. With that said, it just so happens that I have this YouTube channel, so it only makes sense that I share my process with you as well, so that you can also reinvent yourself so fast that everyone will basically think that you used a cheat code. So grab a pen and paper, listen in, take some notes, because if you can nail this down, then 60 days is such a small price to pay for a lifetime of being in alignment with your truth, with your values. And if you stick around to the end, I do have a special offer for you, so stay tuned. There's this book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, and it's written by Bronnie Ware. And she basically took care of people who were at the end of their lives. And naturally, she would develop a sort of bond with these people, and they would tell her about their biggest regrets in life. And the common theme across all of the regrets was that they didn't allow themselves the opportunity to live fully. They played it too safe. They followed the rules of society. They dedicated too much of their lives to things that didn't matter instead of prioritizing the things that did matter to them, like spending more quality time with people and living life on their own terms. So now that I have access to this wisdom that these people left behind, I can't imagine being 80 years old and looking back knowing that 60 days was the difference between really living my life and merely existing. So let's start off by talking about the single most important component of any transformation, whether it's a lifelong journey or a 60-day sprint, which is getting your mind right. Anybody who tries to fundamentally change their life without first doing the inner work to be in the right frame of mind is destined to fail, because in most cases, your mind is the weakest link. I talked in my last video about how the cognitive and psychological functions in the brain need to be trained just like your muscles. Your mindset is a muscle, and you need to build the mental fortitude so that it's strong enough to endure the inevitable psychological resistance that you're going to experience as a result of growing and pushing yourself beyond your comfort zone. Your mind is the governor of your success. It will decide how far you go. But unfortunately, people haphazardly jump into transformation efforts without doing the inner work first. I saw a lot of this with my fitness clients who they have these grand expectations of dropping a bunch of weight and having this smooth path towards looking like an action figure. But the moment that they face a little bit of uncertainty, a little bit of adversity, they're ready to call it quits because they didn't condition their mental. They didn't build their psychological strength. This leads me to the first prerequisite for rapidly transforming your life, which is knowing your why. What's your reason for doing this in the first place? This is so important to nail down because the ability to endure discomfort is directly proportional to your why. Those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how. So the stronger and clearer your reason for experiencing discomfort, the higher your ability to endure said discomfort. So let's talk about a strategy to make sure that you have a strong enough why to carry through the process. And it begins with anti-visioning to set your purpose, your values, and your goals. I always like to say that your pain is your purpose, or in other words, solving whatever problem is your greatest source of pain today is your current purpose in life. So the thing that keeps gnawing away at you more than anything else, whether it's your health and fitness, your relationships, or your job situation, overcoming that challenge in that specific area of your life is your purpose. That's where you'll find your why. We should use our pain to guide us because the animalistic mind inside each one of us is predisposed to reflexively avoiding what it perceives as danger. They say, though, that we do more to avoid pain than we do to gain pleasure. So it's when the pain becomes too much that we finally find the courage to make changes. We instinctually are much more responsive to negative stimuli than positive stimuli. As far as the primal brain is concerned, negative stimuli comes with the potential for death. So we don't have to try very hard to avoid pain or to avoid discomfort. That's basically our default state. So with anti-visioning, we can use this to our advantage. If you sit down and you try to formulate a vision, you might find it really difficult to actually produce something that's accurate because humans are susceptible to letting societal pressures influence their thinking. And we can end up with a vision that's not actually what we want for ourselves. It is much easier to spell out what we don't want. You know for sure that you don't want your hand on a hot skillet. There's very little debate there. So your anti-vision is the life that you don't want for yourself. It's the life that you want to move away from. And the first step in figuring out your anti-vision is to define the general area of life that you want to transform. It could be fitness, it could be your career, it could be your marriage or your relationships. And once you define that area, you want to spend a week journaling and writing down every negative feeling, every negative thought, every worry that you have specific to that area of life that you just defined. And then from there, you'll synthesize your journal entries into a 5 to 10 sentence statement describing the worst case scenario for you in that particular aspect of life. So the worst case health scenario, the worst case career scenario, etc. Then you'll produce the opposite of your anti-vision to create your vision. So you're literally inverting that worst case scenario to now describe your best case scenario. So use this as a foundation for your vision, but spend a little bit of time customizing it, make it a bit more specific and relevant to you and your particular situation. So you do this, now you have your vision. Save that somewhere so that you can come back to it, and then go into ChatGPT and prompt it to create a list of 10 to 20 individual words that capture the essence of your vision, along with the one sentence explanation for each word for additional context. And then you'll want to manually narrow it down to the best 3 to 5 words that resonate with you the most. Those 3 to 5 words, those are your values. So save them, write them down, put them in your back pocket, because from this point onward, every decision that you make, everything that you do must be aligned with your values. This is super important because you're going to find yourself making a bunch of decisions that are uncomfortable. And sometimes your values is what's going to lead you away from the comfortable option. Now that you've set your vision and your values, you can come up with a goal that you believe you can achieve exactly 1 year from now if you push yourself. Use your vision to set the direction, and then use your values to add specificity to your goal. And your goal should be very specific because you can only focus on one thing at a time. So if you want to get more fit, then come up with a goal accordingly. If you want to escape the rat race, then come up with a goal accordingly. If you want to improve your relationships, then come up with a goal accordingly. Keep your goal specific to one aspect of life. Don't try to do everything at once because that will end up very badly if you do. So you've set your 1 year goal, but there's a catch. That 1 year goal is actually going to be your 60-day goal. And it might seem a bit ambitious, but it's definitely possible for a focused mind to achieve in 60 days what the unfocused mind can barely accomplish in a year. And this leads me to the next point, which is to use a process of elimination to focus your life energy. We live in a highly distracted society, and most people are not very intentional about how they navigate through a world full of distractions that constantly demand their time, their energy, their attention, and their money. Extraordinary results are directly determined by how narrow you can make your focus. The best way to achieve extraordinary results is to build a system that eliminates distractions and allows you to channel all your energy and efforts towards the one thing that matters most. The average American spends about 3 hours every day watching television and another 2 hours every day scrolling on social media. Over a 60-day time span, that's almost 300 hours or 13 days spent passively consuming content instead of intentionally focusing on goals. People will gladly fork over their hard-earned money for alcohol, for expensive dinners, for nice vacations. But in the same vein, they'll say that they don't have enough money to invest in themselves or in their goals. This is what being distracted looks like. It's a world covertly draining you of your time, your energy, your attention, your money. So if you seriously want to level up in 60 days, if you want to level up very quickly, then you have to ruthlessly eliminate distractions from your life. This is how you focus. Absorb what is useful, discard what is not. Add what is uniquely your own. People think about focus as a thing that you do, but getting focused begins with the process of elimination. It means taking a full inventory of your daily activities and dropping anything that's not aligned with the values that you came up with earlier in this video. So if your focus is a fitness transformation, then you should be evaluating how you're spending your time, how you're spending your energy, your attention, your money in ways that are misaligned with your values for fitness. And then make a conscious effort to eliminate those behaviors from your life, eliminate those distractions from your life. Same goes for if you're trying to leave the corporate 9-to-5 life and become an entrepreneur. What are you doing that's taking away your time, energy, attention, and money that you could otherwise be dedicating to activities that are true to your values around entrepreneurship? So to focus on your goal, you need to ruthlessly eliminate or at least put on hold all distractions to create space needed to go 100% on whatever area of life your goal is aligned with. When you do this, you systematically reduce your exposure to the sources of cheap dopamine that have been preventing you from focusing on the things that are going to help you to manifest your vision. In my last video, I talked about the importance of controlling your dopamine to build greater cognitive strength. What people don't realize about cheap dopamine is that it chemically inhibits executive function in the brain. It literally reduces your brain's ability to focus, even if you try as hard as you can. So when you cut distractions from your life, you're doing a sort of dopamine detox that's physically rewiring your brain to focus better. And one last thing I'd be remiss to mention is that reducing clutter in your physical space can also help you to focus better. So keeping your home and any other spaces that you spend a lot of your time in, keeping that clean and orderly will go a very long way for you as well. So now that you've eliminated distractions, you've reduced the clutter from your life, you've created a less dopaminergic lifestyle, you're ready to begin focusing on building the new habits, the new behaviors, the new skills that'll rapidly move you towards your goal while everyone else is still unfocused and basically still spinning in circles. Now that you have your 60-day goal defined, and you've created an environment that's conducive for extreme focus, next you have to figure out how to get from where you currently are to your goal state. To do this, I use what I call the 3 N's framework. And guys, please don't attack me on this because I know it's not actually 3 N's, but it is what it is. It's knowledge, know-how, and network. Knowledge is the foundation of everything. There are known unknowns. That is to say, there are things that we know we don't know, but there are also unknown unknowns. There are things that we don't know we don't know. You need to know which levers to pull to produce that desired change. And you also need to know which levers not to pull. For example, if you're trying to transform your body through fitness, then you need to know where to focus most of your energy. There are some people out there who spend hours in the gym trying to burn calories while neglecting their diet and their sleep. They almost always struggle to see transformational change compared to someone who spends just 30 minutes exercising every day while focusing most of their efforts on really dialing in their diet and their sleep. There's some people who want to start an online business, and so they'll focus on building a large follower account instead of building a compelling product, along with a systematic approach for connecting potential customers with that product and delivering real value to them. So they'll end up with a bunch of followers and no clear path to monetization. And the same goes for anything in your life that you're trying to change. You need to know what to know so that you can focus on building the relevant skills and capabilities. And this leads me to the next N, which is know-how. So with the foundation of knowledge that you build, you also need to apply that knowledge to begin manifesting tangible change in the real world. And this is what I refer to as know-how. Know-how is the skills, the capabilities that's necessary to actually bring your goal into fruition, to actually make it real. So sticking with the fitness transformation, for example, now that you have the knowledge that your diet and your sleep is equally, if not more important than spending hours in the gym, you need to know how to apply that knowledge to actually burn fat and to build muscle. You need to know how to source and prepare the right foods, how to exercise for only 30 minutes while producing the same results as people who spend hours in the gym, how to naturally improve your sleep quality, and the list goes on. The same could be said for creating a solo online business. There are specific skills and capabilities that are necessary for accomplishing your goals. The key for building know-how is through actually doing. You have to practice, you have to experiment. And then you have to receive feedback, which is new knowledge. And then you have to iterate, whether it's learning how to properly bench press or learning how to write code, how to set up a marketing funnel for your business. The only way to learn how to do it is to actually do it. This leads me to the final N, which is your network. When I use this word, I'm not talking about your network in a traditional sense. Rather, I'm referring to the sources of information and skill acquisition as it relates to your goal. So yes, your network can be other people, but it could be really anything that helps you to grow your knowledge and your know-how. So this includes courses, lectures, podcasts, newsletters, YouTube videos, books, mentors, coaches, communities, basically any source of information. But my rule of thumb here is that it cannot be short format information. It cannot be social media, and it cannot be entertainment that's disguised as information. But in either case, you must invest heavily into your network to quickly attain the knowledge and the know-how. This is where a lot of people get tripped up because they're too short-sighted to understand exactly how valuable investments in themselves can prove to be. People will happily spend thousands of dollars every year on things that they don't need and things that don't bring them any closer to their goals, but they'll hesitate to spend just a few $100s on a course that'll give them the tools, the understanding, the knowledge that they need to take their lives to the next level. So whatever you do, do not be one of those people. Be intentional about your lifestyle. Take care to divert your resources away from the sources of instant gratification and towards investing into your network. Now that you're focused in on the 3 N's, the last step is to build a system for maximum efficiency and consistency. All of this work is good, but if you don't give yourself structure, then you'll be operating in chaos, and chaos is inefficient. So you need to bring everything together into a system that will lead you to the sustainable habits that drive the massive and rapid life transformation that you're looking for. If you're having trouble changing your habits, the problem isn't you. The problem is your system. Your habits are shaped by the systems around you. And if you want to make a change, you need to redesign your environment and your daily processes. If you don't have a system in place to support your dreams will always be fleeting. When you start anything, any major process, any major transformation, your motivation is going to be high, but motivation is fleeting. It's not always going to be there, and it will betray you if you put all of your faith in it. So, in your 60-day transformation, I want you to turn your temporary motivation into lifelong habits. It's in the habits that you develop where the real life change is actually going to happen. Because remember, habits are the leading indicators of life. So, to move from motivation to habits, you need discipline. And discipline is built through systems. Now, your system is going to be highly customized to your lifestyle and your needs. So I can't tell you what your system needs to look like, at least not in this video, but we can definitely create one together if you want to book a one-on-one consultation with me. But at the bare minimum, your system should include daily rituals that support everything that we discussed earlier, along with dedicated blocks of time to fully immerse yourself in the process of building your knowledge, building your know-how, and building your network. And this should be much easier to do now that you've done the inner work and you've cut the distractions out of your life. Some examples of my system for really leveling up super fast include going to bed and waking up an hour earlier than my normal time every day, at least in that 60-day time period. Since I'm way more productive in the morning and I'm embarrassingly unproductive at night, I systematically shift my day forward to be awake during my more productive hours. I also make my bed and I spend 15 minutes cleaning my home every morning so that my physical space is orderly and it puts my mind at ease. It really helps me to be more present. I have a no phone policy during the first and last hour of my day. I have a daily workout and meditation practice. I take daily walks for at least 30 minutes to help spur creativity. And I surround myself with people who share similar values as I do. And that is like a really powerful life hack because the people around you influence you way more than you really can imagine. So this also means deleting my social media and my streaming apps from my phone, with the exception of YouTube, because I use YouTube more so as a learning resource, not as a social media platform. By removing social media, this removes a huge distraction from my life and it improves my overall productivity. I usually schedule 3 or 4 90-minute time blocks dedicated to focused work and deep learning and skill development throughout my day. So I'll usually do one first thing in the morning when my creativity is highest. And then there's plenty of research out there that supports the idea that cognitive function spikes after a workout. So I'll do another 90-minute session in the early afternoon, just after my midday workout. And then I'll have one more session at night before I start my nighttime routine. Now, this is just a small sample of the system that I designed for myself, but you can have a completely different system that better suits your needs and your goals and your specific lifestyle. But the point is that you need to have structure and you need to have consistency. And once you have this structure, you're ready to leverage the flow state for ultra productivity. At this point, you have all the ingredients. So now you just need to pull it all together so that every unit of input produces exponential output. And this is where the flow state comes in. So flow is a state of consciousness that's arguably the pinnacle of the human experience. It's a state in which the mind is fully present. It's fully focused on a task at hand. The mind that is in a state of flow is at peak productivity, which means insanely rapid skill acquisition and healthy releases of dopamine that keep you locked in and keep you moving forward. When you're in flow, you're so absorbed by the activity that you lose all sense of time and self-consciousness. It is in the flow state that we experience our highest levels of creativity and accomplishment. So the challenge is for you to find your flow. It's not like you can just flick a switch and then be in a state of flow. It takes introspection, it takes intentional living, and it takes having a strong sense of purpose to be able to achieve the flow state, especially to the level that you'll need it for your 60-day transformation. Now, there's many different strategies for entering a flow state, but I do have a few main tactics that I have found to be quite useful. So firstly is having a regular movement practice, preferably one that includes resistance training, but any form of moderate to intense movement is essential for keeping your brain in peak operating order. Secondly, a regular mindfulness practice is also essential for being fully present. So meditation or other practices that take your mind out of survival mode will make it much easier to slip into a flow state. It'll make it much easier for you to be present enough to be in a state of flow. And then lastly, just before I'm about to enter my 90-minute deep focus session, my 90-minute skill acquisition session, I spend a few minutes thinking about my anti-vision and my vision to remember my purpose and my why. And as mentioned before, knowing your why takes you a very long way. It helps a lot. So I'll do this before my work session, and then I'll put on some headphones, play some binaural beats at a 40 hertz frequency to stimulate higher brain frequency. I found these steps to help me to really slip into the zone for peak focus and channeling my life energy into leveling up in a major way in just 60 days. And so if you're also able to find your flow, then you will be able to reinvent yourself so fast that everyone around you will think that you used a cheat code. They simply will not understand how you were able to level up so quickly. Now, I do realize that this is a lot to take in. And to be frank, this video, while it might introduce you to some concepts, you're not really going to retain most of this information. This is just not how the human brain operates. So it's best to actually map out your transformation process by writing it down. And that's why I created an interactive field manual called the Self-Reinvention Cheat Code. In it, I guide you through a process of mapping out everything that I talked about in this video for your 60-day transformation. So you do everything from creating your vision to establishing a deep work protocol. So if you're ready to get focused and start being super intentional about taking your life to the next level, then this is a really good tool that you can use to structure your own lifestyle transformation and move forward with both confidence and clarity. So if you're interested in that, then just check the links in the description below. And that's all that I have for you today, guys. I hope that you enjoyed the message. And until next time, always remember to get up, get out, and get after it. Peace.